So if you guys have not seen the previous part of it, then go first now, look at that link in the description. Base of the Japan Liberation Front is a success, but Cornelia considers it a failure because she lost a lot of her soldiers and she sees a list of dead people including Jeremy's name. The Liberation Front is completely broken. Japan had hoped that whatever fire was left they have now understood, and we see there is a girl who speaks to them, but there is still the Black Knight left. They have Gooden MK to Nightmare, so they tell him you have become a very big fan of Zero and Black Knight nowadays. Then we see Sally in the next scene whose father sends her 2 tickets of 100. Then she thinks that she will go with Lelouch and she remembers that accident of Kayleen and Lelouch, and she starts thinking that she should let Lelouch go to the show. You motivate President Sally for this, which increases Sally's courage. Then we see in the Muggle scene where Sally stops Lelouch and gives him a ticket to the show, and we see the vial being watched by an unknown man from a distance. Then in the Muggle scene we see Zero's team, i.e. Black Knight's team, where Zero gives a letter the Cuts had sent and they want to form an alliance with the Black Knight. But Zero was a little strict in this thing, so he seeks help from CC for this work. Then we see in the next scene where a guy from Cuts comes to pick up Zero and Luch uses his gas on him. Then we see Suzaku in the next scene who has the body due to the War of Narita mounting. He was trapped. He was helping to get them out, but his mental health was still not healed. Then in the next scene we see the professor who was telling his assistant who is the new nightmare of the Black Knight. Lamsalute has been damaged a lot due to his shockweb, so the assistant tells him that only one person can do this shockweb work and that I just met Black Knight. Then we see the Black Knight team in Aglist who get to the base of the Cuts, which was on Mount Fuji, and we see the leader of the Cuts who loses his Kira, and Zero goes up to him and points a gun at him and says, "You know my name? My name is Zero, and yes, I'm not a Japanese at all. I am a Britannia, but I want to support Japan." And then he removes his mask and shows his face to Kirihara, which he does not show to anyone, and seeing this, the captives of Black Knight also get shocked because they also never saw the face of Zero, and Kirihara gets shocked seeing the face of Zero, and then we find out Kirihara is the same guy in which Lelouch is. Nunnally was taken care of. He had woken them up in his orphanage, and Zero speaks to him to help him and to trust the Black Knight. Then Kirihara says to him, "Do you want to bring piss?" Then Lelouch says to him, "No, I want to change this world." Then we'll see in the next scene where Vignetta was showing Sarni some bodies which are related to her. Then we see her in the next scene where Lilu comes to Sarli's given place, and Sarli was badly wet in the rain, and seeing Lelouch starts apologizing to her. Then Sarli asks him, "Lilu, does Zero want to change this world?" Then says to Lelouch, "Yes, he wants to change it." Then Sarli says, "Then why did he kill my father?" And we find out Sadly's father was also involved in the War of Narita mounting. He too died as a result, and Lelouch is surprised to hear this. Then Sadly embraces Lelouch and kisses him and says to him, "Will you help me?" Then we see the scene of Charlie's father at farewell where all his friends had come. Charlie then places a flower on her father's grave. Then it says reverse there. I thought Black Knight would be good, but he is very bad. And we see who had his head bowed because of shame, because it was because of him that Charlie's father was killed. And then the thief also speaks. Zero and Black Knight are terrible. They only think about themselves and act in the wrong way. They can't change anything. Then the president takes everyone from there except Lelouch. Then he said, "Forgive me for what I did last night. I didn't want to do that. Forget all that and that." He speaks and leaves. Then we see in Aglasi where CC says to Lelouch, "Are you sad about the death of your friend's father? Have you killed many people whose families are lovers' friends? Do you think this is a game? Don't say you weren't ready for all of this." That's when Lelouch says, "I was ready, I hit close." Since I was ready when CC was saying these things to him again and again, only then she lies down on the batch and calms him down. Then CC says, "You can't back down now, don't disappoint me." Then in the next scene we see Sarli, who sits in a mysterious car. Then we see the professor who says to Suzaku, "Emilia has asked you to join the war. He needs you." Here, D-Heart comes to the Black Knight and tells him that Britain or Japan are going to attack the ship of liberation, and this time the leader of the Japan Liberation Front will not be able to reach the time. After hearing that all the people of Black Knight ask Zero to save the Japan Liberation, only then Zero says that we will create the Japan Liberation later. We have to beat Cornelia first. And then Kalen was going to ask something to Zero, so he tells Zero that whatever happens, I have some work to do now, and he leaves from there. Then we see Dalton in the next scene, who tells Suzaku to support the Britannia army and do what Nelia says to kill anyone who comes in the way, which Suzaku is also sad to hear. And then in the next scene, Masi looks at the mysterious car in which Sarli was sitting, and we see that the car belongs to Benyata and not anyone else. She speaks while showing Sarli a photo of Lelouch. Always say that this boy is in the Black Knight. This is a student of your school and also your friend, so I want you to keep an eye on him. But Sarli did not want to believe that Lelouch is in the Black Knight, and still she keeps an eye on Lelouch, and she also comes to this war area while chasing Lelouch. Then we see the next sim where Callan comes to meet Zero at a warehouse where Zero had his face covered with a towel. It's not right to kill innocent people. We shouldn't do that. Then Lelouch says we have to do this mission. Whether you do it like it or not, no matter why people call us murderers, we will focus on our goal. Then we see who was wearing these Lee's clothes. Then we see the same unknown man that he is coming. Then we see in the next scene where Cornell speaks or his army to attack the ship of the liberation of Japan and also orders some underwater nightmares. They also break the underwater wall, after which Black Knight also asks for orders from Zero, but Zero tells them to stop because Cornelia has attacked earlier than he expected, and we see Suzaku, who did not launch his own because he thought Cornelia was going to kill everyone. Then we see the vice captain of Japan Liberation, who from the same... He was there and he surrendered to Britain, but the British army does not believe him and they attack his ship, and then we find out that Zero had already planted a bomb on the ship of Japan Liberation and he blasted it so that that ship is destroyed. Zero then orders all the Black Knight. Britannia has destroyed the Japan Liberation Front, we have to avenge them, and he speaks to attack them, and we see Die-Hard, who understands that Zero used the Japan Liberation Front to attack Cornelia, and Die-Hard speaks. This Zero is a very amazing guy and starts running away from there laughing, and we see Zero and Kellen attacking Cornelia. It starts to fall heavily on her and Cornelia was going to lose here. Then Lelouch sees Sarni there, which he stops. Now Suzaku suddenly attacks Zero with his Lancelot and starts beating him badly, and Kellen also cannot save him because she is also busy fighting Cornelia, and Suzaku destroys Zero's nightmare, so Zero has to get out of there, and before that she faints, who sees Kellen attacks Suzaku and starts fighting him. At the same time, the Sari comes there and points her gun on Zero and says, I will avenge my father, and even before that, a little mask of Lelouch bursts and the Sari is visible. Zero, no one else. She is shocked by what she sees, and we see Kellen, who leaves quickly, but Suzaku does not chase her because he has orders to save Cornelia, and then CC calls all the Black Knights and orders them to retreat because Zero was not in a position to give the order, and we see Zero, which came to CC. And Zero, yes, blood is seen below, but he does not know who it belongs to. And after seeing all this, he gets in tension because his mask was also down and his handgun is also missing, and he speaks from the bottle that someone has seen my face and he took my gun and killed another guy, and he also left here with the gun and that guy. Then we see Sadly in the next scene, who was writing a letter about the recent incident. Then his roommate wakes up and says to him, what are you writing? It's bedtime right now. Let's see in the movie Agnishing, where Nina was asking Suzak in front of all the student council members if I can meet Princess Upi. I have to thank them for saving me. I don't think this will happen because she is a princess. Then Lelouch calls Suzaku and says that there is something strange there, then says to Suzaku, yes, today you did not come to school, and Sadly also did not come to school today. So Lelouch says, will you tell Nunnally that I will be late today, then says to Suzaku that you come every day? After that, Suzaku cuts off the phone and we see Leloucher CC where he tells Leloucher that Suzaku also did not take my gun and this less Japan Liberation Front can never be. Then he tells CC that maybe I saw Sarli there, and we see Dalton and Guilford came to meet Cornelia and tell her that Zero probably wants revenge on the royal family, and Guilford, he tells Yuffie to give him his nightmare so that he can be protected. Then in the next scene, we see Sushil, who was very worried because of Suzaku, how he thinks about saving people. Then the professor tells him that you are not worried about him much, but say anything, Suzaku's performance is very good. He should train with Lancelot again. Only then does CCI speak to him. We should focus on Suzaku first and not create him like a machine of Lancelot. Then we'll see in the next scene where Lelouch had used gas on Sarni's room and CC and Lelouch were looking for Sarni's room together, causing CC to get upset and sit on the bed. They don't get anything there, but then a box falls from CC which contains photos of Lelouch and Sarli, and from it he also finds a slip of a train schedule in which Narita was ticked. So Lelouch understands that Sarli Narita is going. We look at Sarli because she was saying to herself, why would Lelouch do that? Then the woman comes there, the unknown man, who tells her that yes, Lelouch will do the same, and starts clapping. Then we see the scene of Black Knight's base where he also says, why would Britain blast the ship of the liberation of Japan? He wanted to catch them alive. Then he says to Callan, do you have any doubts about Zero? Then there goes the Hard and says, it cannot be coincidence. Did you know that he just blew up Zero? Then in the next scene, we see Lelouch and CC who were going to Nreta to find Sadly, and CC asks Lelouch if Sadly would have known that you were the hero, would you kill him? Just doesn't say anything. Then we see the same unknown man as Sadly was saying, you still love that boy, even after knowing that he is Zero and that he killed your father. I know everything, and he says you both should be punished. Only then does her bag slip from Sari's hand and we are shown in flashback where Sari comes to know that Lelouch is the hero. Then she humbly comes and sees Zero's face and speaks that if I hand it over, I will get a big reward, my rank will increase, and then suddenly Sally points a gun on him and Binyata gets angry and moves forward to kill him. But then Sally fires a gun on him and kills him there, and again we come to the present where that unknown guy talks to Sally. You're as bloody as a hero. You used your father's death to get closer to Lelouch, and you also knew that Lelouch loved someone else. Yet you kept walking behind him and saying that you should get punishment, and Sally starts crying after hearing all this, and we see that this unknown guy also has gas, and what is his ability? We are not told yet. Then in the next scene we see Lelouch and Shishi who reach Narita and start looking for Sari, and only then Lelouch sees that Sari calls him, but as he picks up that call, behind him their unknown man comes and he has Sari's phone. Lelouch sees him and says, what did you do with the Sari? So now the guy says, if you want to know, play chess with me and let's see who was still tossing the Sari. Only then that Lelouch sees that guy with him and sees that guy and says Mao, and we see Mao starts the game with Lelouch and is predicting his every move, and he also beats Lelouch in the game. Shocked, because no one has beaten him in the chase before today. Then Mao tells you, didn't anyone tell you about me? Let me tell you. I also have Gies and I can read anyone's mind, and only then that rail card that stops and Lulu sees that there is Sarli outside, who had pointed a gun at him. Sarah tells him, both of us should be punished. I will kill you first, then I will kill myself. Lelouch tries to explain, but what happens to Mav confuses Sarli, and Sarli comes to her words and shoots the gun, but Lelouch escapes and falls down, and due to falling down, Sarli and the photos with her fall out of her pocket. And suddenly is fascinated by this and stops and shoots Mao, and Mao escapes and quickly gets into the rail cart and says, you both do what you have to do, and there's a gun. As soon as he picks him up, then someone closes the door of the rail from outside, so he sees that there is CC outside who says to him, Mao, this is you, and Mao sees him and says, Shishi, this is you, I will definitely meet you. And we see in the next scene where Sar tells Lelouch that he has killed Venita, but Lelouch tells him that it was not your fault and says that you forget all this, then this is good. I'll make you forget everything and use my gas on it. uses and erases his memories along with Lelouch. Then in the next scene we see Ogi, who was in the war place, where he sees Vinenta, and when she goes to see her, she is alive. And then in the next scene we see where Lelouch had erased all the memories of Sari with him, and Sari also forgets everything about Lelouch as if she was for him. And Sari doesn't even remember why she came here, and we see Lelouch dejected and leaves. Then in the next scene we see where Lelouch and CC were going back from the train, and Lelouch speaks to her, "Are you with me or are you my enemy?" And he asks her if mom can read anyone's mind with the power of her gas. I say yes to the same, and says everyone's gas has different ability, and Mao's gas has the ability that he can read anyone's mind within 500 meters. For this, he does not have to make eye contact with anyone, and for this reason, when he goes to a crowded area, he hears the voice of everyone's mind because he has no control over his gas. Because of this, he goes crazy. Lelouch says to him, "Did you also contract with Mao?" So he says, "Yes, 11 years ago, and now he's targeting me." Then we see the morning scene where we find out Lelouch has cameras all over her house because of Mao, and asks the drains if you have any fun to play with. "If you've got the losing game," Lelouch speaks. "Yes, this time the enemy is very tough," so Nunnally says, "I want to see who he is. There was no tough for you except Big Brother Snyder." Then in the next scene we see where we came to buy a gun from a guy, but that shopkeeper refuses to give him a gun and says, "I can't give you a gun without permission." It turns out that Mao is Chinese, and he tells the guy, "I know you work for the Black Knight. Whoever hears this is terrified." That's when Mao starts forcing him to smell. Then in the next scene we find out where Lelouch has all the Black Knight's minions go after her to find Mao. Only then does CCU speak to her. "You don't need to suffer so much. Mao is behind me. You can use me as a bait to catch him." Lelouch then says, "If I continue to use gas like Mao, will I also be in the same situation as Mao, or is it because he couldn't fulfill his contract with you?" CS says, "You will continue to use it as you do. Gas power will increase. And those who are not able to handle it are exhausted by the power of gas." Then he says loudly to Lelouch, even after knowing all this, "You contracted with me." Me and Ma tells him and Lelouch that you are stone-hearted. I don't understand why he is following you, and we see Lelouch gets upset with all these things. We'll see in the next scene. Suggestion asks the professor if there is any way to meet Princess UP. So the professor tells her that only the person who has the rank of owner and earl can meet the princess, and I can meet the princess because I am a nobleman and the professor is a nobleman. Hearing this, Suza is saddened, and we see Lelouch, who tells the president that she is a student. After locking the building, she asks Lelouch if anyone knew that you are a prince, and we find out that Lelouch also knows that Lelouch is a prince because she is related to the Esford family. But only then Sarli comes there, who sees Millie and Lelouch talking and says to Lelouch that you are here. How are you here? Lelouch tells her, "I am also from the same school. I am a student, we are in the same class, but Sally is in a hurry." So she leaves there, and Sally had forgotten everything about Lelouch because Lelouch had used his gas on her. Then the president asks Lulu why is she behaving like this. So Lelouch says that we have had a quarrel over a little thing, so she is behaving like this. Then in the next scene we see where a guy is taken to the corner and killed and asks him if his mother has said that. Then that guy says that I know, go to the police and ask, and we see Sarli, who is looking for her diary, but she is not finding it anywhere, and we see her. In that diary was with Lelouch, and he was thinking that if I stay within 500 meters of Mao's radiation, he can be my main end, but if I stay 500 meters away from him, I can make a move against him. But then the ladder comes up and says to him, I think we are thinking the same thing, and they both say to each other that we should co-vaporize. Only then Nylock gets a call from someone, and that call is from Mao and not from anyone else, he tells Nylock. CC is the same, don't you give him a call, I have to talk to him alone. And we see Ogi because Binyata was picked up and brought to his house, and only then Binyata is lost. But we know that Binyata loses all her memories. She doesn't know anything about her past, who she is, what she is, and she asks Ogi who you are, and Ogi tells her, just assume that I saved you from dying. And Vanita thanks him for it, and her entire personality changes after her memories are lost. She becomes a new human being, a kind person. Then in the next scene we see where CC says to Lelouch, be happy now, everything is going to settle between us. I'm going back to Mao. So Lelouch asks him, "Are you cheating on me? So why are you asking CC? I never considered you my partner." And by saying that CC leaves there, then we look at Suzaku. Whoever came for his medical checkup and his test gestures are fine, he passes the medical test. Then she says to the nurse, "Suzaku, you're Kurugi Gembu's son, aren't you? Because former Prime Minister of Japan Kurugi Gembu was a very great person." Then in the next scene we see where the leader of Japan Liberation Todo, Suzaku's father Kurugi Gembu's grave, and we see some soldiers were watching him and saying Todo, the leader of Japan Liberation, was found. Prepare to catch all the sections that were hiding. Then in the next scene, we see where Lelouch asks Die Hard to find a new base for the Black Knight, and Lelouch thinks that Die Hard is a Britannia, but she is very useful to me. And then Lelouch finds the call recording of CC and Mao in her phone. Then we see in the next scene where CC is from AMU. Ment is in the park and he gets Ma there and tells him that now I don't want to live with you, but that Ma speaks. All these are lies. You like me too, and that's when he shows a recording in his headphones which has CC's voice, and we see in flashback where CC gives Mo gas power when she is young, and she tells Mama that you don't listen to anyone, you just listen to me here. After this, these two had spent a lot of time together, and that mother used to tell him that I will never leave you, I will keep you with me. And we see the scene of the present where Ma and Shishi are told to come with her, and then CC points a gun at her and takes her to the other side. Lu listens to the recording of CC and tries to find her, and only then in the next scene we see where Mao shoots CC in the hand, and he starts firing again and says to Mao, "I want to take you with me to Australia, but you are very big, you have to fit in my suitcase." And he takes CC out calmly to cut it, but only then their lust sees himself on a screen. And he says, "I'm in Tokyo Tower right now, and you can't delete my mind right now." Then Mother speaks what you will do from there, and only then Lelouch speaks to her. "I know CC's real name, which she just told me CC is mine. I have seen parts of her which you have never seen," and hearing this, Mao gets angry. And the chain show starts running on the screen, and because of everyone, the police come there. A policeman picks up CC, and we see that policeman is not someone else who came in the disguise of police, and he talks to Mao through his mind, tells Mao, "You were in Tokyo Tower right now." He tells Lelouch that it was just a recording, and CCI told me that you can't turn off your gas. You have no control over your gas, so brother says to Mao, "I will defeat you." Then he says to Lelouch, "If you try, you will be killed." And then Mao starts telling the policeman that Lelouch is a hero, and only then we know about all the policemen. Lelouch has used his gas power because of Jess. He is under his control, and those policemen fry Mao with bullets. The police then leave Lelouch and CC at a building, and CC tells Lelouch, "When I signed the contract with Mao, when he was only 6 years old and an orphan who knew nothing, and when I gave him grass, he thought I was his friend, his lover, his everything. I am." Lelouch says that I will change this world by using my GIS. I will use GIS properly and fulfill your contract. CC says, "Why will you do this?" Lelouch tells her that this is my new contract. Then CCB accepts it, and they both shake hands. Then we see the scene of the next day where Lelouch meets Suzaku at school. Both of them are talking to each other, and only then Reverse comes there and says to Lelouch that you did not tell me that today is Millie's marriage interview. Then Lelouch says that I also do not know about this, and Reverse was getting so upset because he also liked the president. Then we see Millie in the next scene who came for her marriage interview, and we find out Jess is going to get married to Mealy. He is a professor, and because of this, the Asphalt family wants to marry the professor so that his name can increase. Then this professor tells Mealy that this interview is being held in a lab instead of a restaurant, and he asks her directly, "Will you marry me?" He is shocked to hear this. They see UP where they both were sitting in the garden, and Cornelia promises UP that she will catch Zero quickly, and with this video ends. And if you want the next part of it, then brother comment, and brother, now this is going to be very dangerous in Honey. Now brother, a review is about to start, so brother, don't miss the next part, and definitely write the next part in the comments. And if you are watching the video to win, brother, like and subscribe so that I will bring the next part more quickly. Bye bye.